The lead gen sites are crucial when you're first starting out. Like, there is no way you're going to get business unless you're well known in the industry and you have a background of, obviously, jobs from elsewhere that you've carried over, or referrals. You're not going to get business except from the lead generation sites. That is your main source of that initial pipeline of work. There's different lead source websites that work for different people. Every one of them is slightly different. Some are better known. Some people will look at the lead costs. Others will look at the quality of the leads. There's not necessarily one that is better than another.
Talk to me about quality of leads. How do you, when you're advising your surveyors, kind of discern what quality of leads means for them?
I probably have some preference in terms of where I've seen over the past 2 years that most of the conversions coming for. But there's no one set rule for one that works across the board. So what works for one area, say in South London, will not necessarily work for Yorkshire. There is a lot of trial and error. And I think the biggest mistake surveyors sometimes make is when they first go solo, they will activate every single lead gen website, which also means that they're then being billed twice for the same lead, because a consumer will go onto a website, search, I want my local surveyor, get a price or 5 from obviously different companies, then go straight onto the next website and look for the cheapest, because ultimately lead generation is price. People are after that price. What works for one company will not work for another one. And it is a trial and error.
How do you go about assessing the quality of leads? How do you go about trialing different sites to find out which one's right for you?
For the first and most important part of it is actually contacting these leads. So what a lot of surveyors do when they start out completely alone, which is obviously something a lot of people do, is they will activate all these lead sites, they will get the leads through, and then they will not get any conversion. And the first question is, okay, well, how are you following up on these leads? And a lot of them will say, well, I'm on site. When I go back in the evening, I would give them a call. But by that point in time, a lot of those leads are already booked. Mm-hmm. So really having a system and having a process in place is key. So, for example, we use a lot of Survey Booker, because it's a system that allows you to follow up instantly, and then obviously have that pipeline of who you need to call, and obviously call them within 40 minutes, because you need to follow that lead up quickly or someone else will snap it. So it's not necessarily the quality of the lead that's bad, it's how you follow it up as well.
Yeah. Just to touch on that, we did a lead response study in 2020. So it was the caveat for that, it was just coming out of COVID. I think the market had been open about 3-4 weeks again. And speed of response is key. So we found that nearly 10% of firms responded within 5 minutes to, it was an email inquiry we made, and 46% responded within an hour. When you're the first person that's speaking to that customer, you're adding the most value. You're the one who's giving them the information about what a level 2, what a level 3 is, what type of things you'll be doing, how the process works. Mm-hmm. As you become the second, third, fourth, fifth person to speak to them, the amount of extra value you can add significantly decreases. Mm-hmm. So beyond really having to sell yourself and show what value you've got versus the other 3 they've already spoken to, you've got a much harder sell, and possibly someone's keen to go ahead, they've already booked, as Jemma said. Yeah. So that speed of response is massively a key.
If I may, Jemma, I'm not going to throw this one to you, because I know the correct answer here will be partner with Jamie and get your business off the ground. If you are a surveyor on your own and you don't have the support of someone like your team, Jemma, what advice would you give Matt in terms of that speed of response? How would you manage that?
I think, well, for starters, you can have a look at what people are doing in your area, and it ties slightly back with what Jemma was saying about different lead sources being better than others in different areas. It depends how you're performing versus others, what how quickly you're responding, what email you're sending out. But I think you need to be looking at what people are doing in your area, and if you're not able to match that, then you're going to struggle. So if you're using a particular lead generation site, let's say to start with, if everyone's responding within 5 minutes with automated emails to get their foot in the door and you're not, you're already at a disadvantage. So you need to then be looking at what process you can put in place, whether it's a system like ours, whether it's another sort of thing you put together that sends some initial content out about when you'll be in touch. Because quite often it's just about setting expectations rather than having to be the first to call. And then if you match that expectation or beat it, then you're on a good first step. So I think that's your first point, is just looking at where do you sit in the market versus others, or where you're going to be sitting.
I might be, and Jemma, you've probably got a good view of this. I might be, actually, I'm sure you do as well, Matt, asking too much, and I'm sure there'll be a range. But if I was starting out and I was running lead gen sites for the first 6 months, how many leads should I expect to get through, and what's a decent conversion rate? Just so
it depends on the time of the year, it depends on the area, and it depends on what postcode you're activating. There really isn't a set. Conversion wise, really, if you're starting out with nothing from complete scratch, you're really aiming to get to 10% ASAP and then building up on that. So, we have a mixture of accounts who, anything between 25 and 60. Our highest one is 60, but it's not a one day thing. So I think a lot of surveyors starting out, we have a bit of a conversation before they start, where obviously they supply me with a lot of information, including price lists or what they would like to achieve, obviously, and areas, etc. And occasionally, obviously, you'll have someone who has, comes with nothing, and their level 2 will start at £800. Now, you're not going to get £800 on your first week, because you have no reviews, you have no history, you have no referrals, and you're competing on a lead generation site where people are price conscious. So obviously you're not going to be the cheapest. No one's asking you to be the cheapest, but equally you've got to actually have a look at the stats and make your expectations a bit more realistic. It's a process. It's not a one day thing. So what someone does in the first 3 months as a workflow, if you may, is different to what you do, 4 to 8 months in. It's a different stage entirely. By the time you get to, 8 months to a year, you should very well be in a position to hire a second person, a second surveyor, and actually grow that second person as well.